Good evening. Welcome to the April 24th Village Board Work Session. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. We'll begin with announcements, and I know there's a bunch of them. It's springtime. Our calendars are filling up. I can't even get to everything that's happening on any given day. So who wants to kick us off with announcements?
Sure. I'm on, right? Good evening, everyone. I hope if you observed Passover or Easter, it was a great weekend, and I believe Passover is still going on, right?
Still going.
Okay, so hope it goes well for all those that are celebrating. Just a reminder that this Saturday morning, before you head off to Earth Day at the waterfront, there's going to be a community cleanup being held by a couple of Ossining High School students. It's called Ossining Unidos. They're meeting at the Walden Avenue parking lot at 10 a.m. It was rescheduled from last week due to the rain. So if you really want to have a good Earth Day, you want to clean up some garbage, get some coffee, and then head down to the waterfront, it's a pretty good day. Thank you.
That's it?
Yeah.
Trustee Levin.
Good segue there. Good evening, everybody. I was going to remind people, but Omar just did for Saturday for Earth Day. Monday was actually the official, I think, Earth Day. And we in the village have kicked off a Little Big Ossining campaign that little things make a big difference in an anti-litter campaign. Gotten quite a bit of press. It is online. Put my glasses on. The website is littlebigOssining.com, and you can go on there. There are ways to, there's a pledge on there for everybody, and I hope everybody in this room, that's my colleagues and everybody else here tonight, goes online and makes a pledge to help clean up Ossining where we can. And I want to show, is it okay, or do I do it under continuing business, the video? Because I'm not sure the people saw the video. I want you to know that the kickoff in a minute. The kickoff officially happened on Monday in honor of Earth Day, and in conjunction with many things that were going around. If I'm not mistaken, the governor made an announcement the same day about sort of anti-plastic bag program. Our own Route 9 has finally, and I don't mean to be sarcastic, but I've been sort of been writing letters and complaining about the way Route 9 looks, certainly in Ossining and Briarcliff, with litter all over on both the north and south side. And I believe on Monday the county did actually go out there. There were hundreds of orange bags, some of you may have seen. So I thank the county for that. I do wish they would have cleaned the northbound side as well, but I'm sure they'll get to that because there was a lot of cleaning up. But I thought that was terrific, so I'm appreciative of that. Just on the first day, the website that was created for this campaign, which for those of you that have been following our downtown development group, the website got like 196 unique users and over 850 page views. 28 folks took the pledge right away that day. A number of the handbooks were downloaded. We're trying to get rid of paper. We do have the handbooks for businesses and residents. Anyone else interested that will be distributed throughout the village, through the chamber, etc. But we are trying to cut down on paper as a part of anti-litter, so you can download the handbook that talks about our codes and what is a good way to sort of stop the litter. Not just in our village, obviously it's for everybody. Facebook had a lot of hits, Instagram now has followers, and there's an entire social campaign. It's actually the first anti-litter social campaign in Westchester County. Yonkers did something a few years ago and put banners up and covered garbage cans and tried to get people to focus about not littering. But this is the first fully social, and you've seen the garbage cans and banners, but it's really geared towards a social campaign. You can learn more about it on Saturday on Earth Day. I'm just going to show a short video.
All right. I will move out of the way.
Appropriate announcement time. I never get this.
It works.
Okay. It's only 2 minutes. You told me what to do.
I did. I have it in my hand. It'll take 2 seconds. So this is, did you want to show the website at all?
You could flip through the website. This is what
So this is
This is what the website looks like, and this was shown by the downtown committee, if you've been following our meetings. There are places to go for residents, businesses, and some resources. They're all click-throughs. Just go to the video, because I don't want to take up this whole meeting with a presentation. It feels, that's like what I'm doing, I didn't mean to. Go ahead. Yep.
Austin is becoming a bit of a haven for entrepreneurial businesses. We're a small community on the waterfront, which means that we are very attractive to small businesses.
We all do our part to keep downtown Austin clean. Every other day, we sweep, water the plants.
My background is Portuguese and we have a saying,
lead with our eyes, and this is the truth. If things look good, if it appeals to you, customers come in.
The Craven team and I, we spend significant time of the day making sure that outside and inside of the store is clean.
we always make sure that our storefront is clean, beautiful, whether we end up doing weeding or sweeping sidewalks or shoveling snow, it's always pristine.
The things we do here at Food Choice Kitchen is we keep our garbage output very small. Kitchen scraps are composted. We make sure our windows are clean. We make sure our front area, sidewalk, and entryway is well swept.
Litter begets litter, and if you see something on the ground, you may think nobody cares. So it's an issue of respecting our community. The other issue is it can impact economic development. If people come and they see that there is litter and garbage and this is not a community that cares about it, why would anybody want to open up a storefront?
Your tiny actions make a big impact.
Las cosas chicas hacen un impacto grande.
Keep Austin clean.
Keep Austin clean.
Keep Austin clean.
Thanks, Jamie. That was it.
Very nice. Yeah, and thank you to everyone on the Downtown Development Fund Council who really was the driving force behind getting that done, and because the liaison there, so she's been integrally involved in that, and thank you for making that happen. We're very excited. It was a good launch, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. Okay, Trustee Basemore, do you have any announcements? Nope. For you? We're good over here? Because I have a litany, so let me get through them. I will start with, on Earth Day, the Village of Ossining received an Eco Award from Westchester County. And it was thanks to just some of the good works that's done every day by our team in Public Works. There's reporting that happens every year for what happens with our trash and our recycling, and we were recognized for something that's probably hanging on your refrigerator. It's hanging on my refrigerator, and that is our annual newsletter that comes out every year in English and Spanish that encourages people to make the most of their materials management on your household basis. And it's communication and to everyone in our community is something that it's nice to be recognized for, because that's something that we work very hard to do. And thank you very much to the men and women of the DPW, and it was an honor to be able to accept this award for your excellent work. Let's see, we were the only people who got an award of that nature. There were some different eco awards that the county did, so it was nice to be recognized as we were. And I had a nice conversation with the gentleman who nominated us for it and put us forth, who manages waste for the whole county, and we really stood out, so that's nice. Next, I wanted to give folks an update. Earlier today, Jamie Hoffman and I attended a panel discussion that was hosted in Newburgh by Pattern for Progress, and it was the three winning mayors from the DRI competition from the Mid-Hudson region. DRI is the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. It is the fourth year that Governor Cuomo has put it out there, and the The announcement formally just came the end of last week, but we've been anticipating it. We knew that it was going to be coming again. The Village of Ossining has applied every year. So we've applied 3 times. We've been finalists twice, and we're hoping that this year is the year. We've had some really helpful feedback from the state in anticipation of this, and we're looking forward to having an excellent application this year. And today's panel discussion was very helpful in that, and Jamie and I had some initial conversations, but I know that it's going to be informative for how we move forward with the application. I do want to give folks some further update. This is the lovely flyer for Earth Day that folks have been talking about, and as we did last year, and maybe years beyond that, I'm just remembering last year, the town and the Village of Ossining are sharing a booth, and actually we have secured a double booth because we have so many great things to talk about, including the Little Big campaign. And also I want to say thank you to Dana Levenberg, working with the staff at DPW to put together some posters that they're actually printing them now. They're bigger than I was anticipating. Now that we have a double booth, we're going to fill it with lovely posters highlighting some of the achievements that generally Ossining has made in environmental policies and environmental practices. And then we're also going to be promoting the toilet replacement program, and the town has information about the Mogo Trail that they're going to be putting out some more information from, and the leaf blower legislation that's been passed in the village and the town. There's going to be information in English and Spanish at our booth, as well as some other locations throughout the day. But that's probably not what's going to draw most people down to the festival. It's more likely the live music and the food and the activities. It's a wonderful day on the waterfront, so I look forward to seeing many folks there. And we all kind of talked about it, if there was anything else that the village wanted to make sure was present, most especially us. So we've got some folks sort of lined up to set it up and to man the booth, but we can talk about who's going to be there and when you can be there. I know I have a piece of the day that I definitely can't be there, so I'm sure we all want to contribute to the success of that day. And I will also just make sure you have on your calendar, because it's coming up. If you are somebody who loves to go to tag sales, it is your lucky day on May 4th. This is another Green Ossining initiative. It's a community-wide tag sale. You can go to greenossining.org and learn about all of the locations where there will be tag sales happening at people's homes, and you can just make a day of it, drive around and find treasures for yourself. So that's May the 4th, and more information about that and the Earth Day Festival can be found at greenossining.org. I also understand that, and I'm looking out into the audience to see if there's more information to fill in my gaps. This Sunday, anybody who is interested in learning more about being a volunteer firefighter can go to OFD headquarters. Oh, maybe you can fill in my blanks, because Bob was looking it up.
I forgot about it.
Okay. So it's this Sunday at OFD headquarters on State Street, which is right behind the courthouse. And it's a recruiting opportunity, and you can learn from FASNY, which is Fire... FASNY is sponsoring, which is the state organization for volunteer firefighters. And we think maybe 11-ish, or you can go to the Ossining Fire Department website to learn more details about exactly when to be there. So we are very, very proud of the tremendous support we have for our fire department, and we certainly encourage more folks to learn about it. They are always looking for new recruits to keep it strong. All right, Acting Manager Fraioli.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for recognizing and receiving that award on our behalf and recognizing the staff's work. We appreciate that. If Stuart doesn't have any announcements, I'd like to get right into the agenda.
Go right ahead.
A late addition to the agenda, but first on the agenda, we have Michael G. O'Connor here, Vice Commander from Ossining Post 506, to discuss a program he'd like to implement throughout the village and town with regard to veterans. Michael G.
Is it on?
It's on. You just need
It's
to
on.
speak into it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Mayor, honorable members of the trustees of the board, the American Legion at our commander, Frank Fiella, who was supposed to be here tonight, but as dutiful husbands, he didn't check with his wife on his, booking his appearance, and he called me up and said, "You gotta go." So, and Frank Fayola, our commander, initiated this. He saw it in other places, and this is, we put a collar with a unit on it around the pole that holds the street sign up, and we want to put an American flag. Now, this is not every street. Excuse me. It is the streets that have been named for veterans that died in the war. The village of Ossining has 7, to my knowledge. The unincorporated town has, I believe, 22. Briarcliff has about 15. We've already appeared before the town board, and the town is willing to help fund the cost of these collars with the ability to put a flag in with a set screw on it so nobody can just come by and take it out. Obviously, if they have a tool, they may be able to remove it, but we hope to limit the loss of flags in this thing. But we're only going to put them out for Memorial Day and other important days. We were received warmly by the town board, and they've kind of set a dollar figure to us, and I hope that you as well could, it's probably in a range of about $900, if hopefully that is still the case. I'll be talking with the village manager and the staff at Village of Briarcliff Manor to see, because they have a number of streets named after veterans as well. It is, we've already tested the prototype. I went out and did it on Tavanna Road. Actually, I have a picture of it, but I've got too many pictures on my phone to try to find it. And it works well. The prototype worked. And so we're actually going ahead because we want to get them up hopefully by Memorial Day. I know the first thing on some people's mind, and probably yours too, is there any special equipment, a bucket truck or anything else? Nothing is needed. Literally standing on the ground, you can put the thing up there and then tighten it with a wrench. It's not going to be so high up that it can't be done from the ground. No step stool or anything. You're just going to stand there on terra firma with a wrench in your hand and then tighten this thing up. If you just put it on and then you slide it up and then you just tighten it and it's done. The units are being made now, and they're going to go over to New Jersey where they're going to be dipped into a product, and here's where Paul's technical knowledge can come into play, and it's supposed to inhibit rusting, and hopefully that will work. And so we're going ahead, and we're looking for support. So on behalf of Ossining Post 506 American Legion, we're looking for support for this. You know, with all the other activities we do, we're a little tight on funds, and we're looking for support for this. And should anybody in the community hear us, that would be great, and you wouldn't have to put up so much to help us out here. But I'll answer any of your questions.
Do you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
Sure. Thank you, Michael G. That sounds like a wonderful effort, and a couple of questions with regard to the installation and the support you're looking for. I think I'll leave the financial support decision up to the board and what that entails to Stuart. But as far as the logistics of placing them, are you looking for the village staff to assist you in placing them, put them all up, or you were going to put them up on your own? What are the details there?
Oh, we were willing to put them up ourselves. The town felt that maybe somebody from the highway staff should be with us while this is done or assist. That hasn't been all worked out. I don't want to mislead you in any way. The town had some concerns about us doing it versus their staff doing it.
So I guess I'll reiterate those concerns. I think the village has the same. So at a minimum, when we do end up coordinating it, it will be with the village overseeing the effort, because, you know, as you know from your former
Yes,
life,
I
those are
know
all,
just what you're going to say.
Weeks ago.
yeah, you know, there's street sign requirements, and there's certain ways they have to be installed. So we definitely don't want to slow the effort, but we do want to be there to make sure they're put put up right, and there's some liability associated with the same working in the right of way.
That I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
But we can
So-
coordinate that, and the rest I leave to you
I,
guys.
as you said, I think we can coordinate and get through any concerns that anybody might have about who's doing what.
Is there a chance that the Tavano prototype is still in place where the board might be able to take a ride by and check it out?
No, it's not. It had to be taken down, and it went back to the manufacturer that's doing this thing, and he's working on them right now. And then we want to get them over to the dipping process to puts that material on it to inhibit the rusting of it.
Okay, can I ask then maybe if, since you do have a picture, when you find it on your phone, you can maybe shoot something off to the board and copy
Yes.
village administration on the same email?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
That's easy.
Mayor?
I just wanted to ask, so it's American flags,
Being an American flag, and
just an American flag?
just one American flag, and it's a tube with a set screw on it, obviously connected to this collar that bolts on
Okay.
to the sign. And so we put the flag in and we tighten down the set screw.
How long are they going to be up? Is it,
Oh, good question. How long are they going to be up? We anticipate them like a couple of weeks, or maybe from Memorial Day, maybe the 4th of July. Once they're up, I think that we can go on and in an hour and a half and put them up or take them down, whatever the case may be. It's the same flag that we use to decorate the cemeteries with.
okay. So you guys, you're just going to need to work out, so Veterans Day, just, something, so there's a schedule of these, so people know they're going up, they're coming down,
Right.
et cetera.
Well, again, we're only discussing the logistics tonight for the village. I mean, we could do things collective with the town to try to help them, since they do have
Right.
threefold the amount of roads
Yeah.
based on those numbers. But even the entire effort does not seem like something that's going to
Right.
be tough to coordinate.
And how much is it?
We have a budget of, if I remember correctly, we're looking at about $1,600 to $1,700 for the project. If just don't hold my feet to the fire for that, but for having said that, but that was the last numbers that I remember.
So, I'm sorry.
No, the conversation we had, 1,800 is the number that I had in my head, and then,
Well,
because the
okay.
town did 900, and that was
No,
half, so
yes,
that,
that
which is
would-
actually what they have, so that makes
Yeah,
sense.
be about 1,800
Okay,
then.
all right.
And the town said they'll do half of
Nine,
that,
yeah.
9, and you're going to Briarcliff and to us, and,
Well, Briarcliff is addition, that's only for that. We didn't order for Briarcliff
Oh,
yet.
okay.
We hope that we can get them in time. I'm hoping to get over there this week, and of course, the village manager is a veteran himself, a Navy veteran, and and I hope to speak to him. And they're very proud of and I've talked to, I guess, a lady over there with the Historical Society, or whoever, and so I think there is some interest on their behalf. Well, I don't want to speak for them yet.
okay.
I mean, it's not something that was in the budget, but it's certainly a wonderful project that I'm pleased that it sounds like logistically we can figure it out, and I'm happy to support it. If the town gave 900 for 22, does it make sense that we give 300 for 7? But I'll throw it out to anybody who wants to comment.
Vice Commander O'Connor,
Thank you.
thanks for being here. This is great. I would really like to see if, I'm definitely supportive of the project. It's only 7. As of right now, right?
Yep.
Streets. I would love to find a way to let people know why they have flags on them when it comes to time. So,
Right.
Any way that we could help, or the Legion can kind of get that word out and the messaging as to why we're
Yes.
doing this and who these
People are,
people were. That'd be great, and thank you. A lot of communities find their own way to really acknowledge, their own vets in service, and you guys do a great job at that. And I think that this is a great addition for us to really honor, those who have actually served us in our country. So, thank you.
Thank you all.
Does side of the table have any input?
As far as the expense, because we do have a signed budget and we have an operating budget for items
Great.
for all our street and road signage, so I will get back to you if for some reason this is going to upset the budget. I don't anticipate that. But we already have an existing line and should be able to process that once we determine what the final costs are.
With that being said, no comments.
You're supportive.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be your
That's what he
comment.
meant.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all.
and
Thank you again.
Definitely support this whole project, so yes.
Thank you.
So the question is, how much? The town contributed half of the expense. Or do we want to give the same dollar amount, or is it like a proportionate amount? How do people feel?
Well, I mean, if it's estimated to be 1,800, because that number, from my understanding, Vice Commander O'Connor, was only for the town and village of Ossining, the estimate, right, 1,800, and then you're looking separately, totally not related to this project in Briarcliff, to get a price from them, and it's a whole separate thing with them.
Yeah, that would be us going to them, and, obviously, we don't want to step on toes. You have Larry Riley, who's the post commander over there for Briarcliff's American Legion Post, and I'm sure we really want to cooperate with them, so I'll be calling him as well as the village manager, to explain the program and everything. I hope Briarcliff watching us.
Well, anybody can watch it once
right.
you've said it. Okay, so I just, yeah, I'm going to be in support so that we don't spend, looking at pennies if there is the opportunity to also, I wouldn't do proportion. I think it's like sort of, doesn't make sense. My only concern, Michael, is that we put stuff up and 2-3 years down the road, they start falling apart, and it reflects on us as the village, even though it's a project that with good intentions. So if the village is paying half and if the town is paying half, I would like something to come from you guys. You're doing it in sweat equity because you'll be helping to put it up, and you did all the research, and hopefully you'll put some press releases out there and invite the elected officials so that people understand.
Absolutely.
But I'm always concerned, and Paul has heard me say this in the past, I'm always concerned of what happens year two, after the second and third year when things start happening. So if somebody steals one, who pays for it? And that actually becomes more problematic than this part of the conversation.
It does, and it's in the design of it and how we intended to mount them. Not that they could never be removed, they could be removed, but it would be a Herculean effort to get the thing off. So you're not going to go up there with a pair of pliers and remove it. That'll never happen. But that was our concern is, we put them up there. What would happen if somebody decided, that would look good in my yard,
I just, Paul, do we put flags up on these holidays? And so will there be 2 sets of flags now up in the village? I mean, I don't even remember, to be honest with you.
Couple questions. Are you looking to do it at the head sign of the road, or are you looking at where it says the name each time on the road? Because
Well,
some roads
only,
have
only,
one.
that- only, in the case of all these roads, I believe there's only one head
Okay.
sign.
So, that being the case, to answer, you had a couple of questions within your talking points there. Once we get the email, we look at the specifications, I'm sure we can find it in a way to order a couple of shelf items, because it's not always theft. Sometimes it's vandalism, or sometimes it's a car accident or something that takes out signs. So we like to have that. So I'll work that out with you so we can have it, and we still don't have a lot of downtime in recognizing someone for that. The flags that we hang up will be on the main thoroughfares that are only up for either the Memorial Day or the July 4th weekend, and they come down, which is kind of like the same thing we're doing here. So I don't think we're going to have flag pollution, if that's what you might have
Or
been.
different, all different.
Yeah,
okay.
and they'll be on roads that are really away from the main thoroughfares.
Okay.
So.
Great.
But I do like the idea of the promoting, and maybe it's something we can do, because I believe at one time or another I did see a database you had of each veteran that had the history on why they're naming the road and who it was and what
Yes.
war they were in. So
Yes,
if we
I
can
have that.
work that out in our email exchanges, maybe we can
Yep.
work with the town and village and put it on our respective websites. That would be nice when you eventually launch this.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'm hearing everybody, we're supportive of
Yes.
of donating of
Half.
contributing how much? Half?
I said half, but I wasn't speaking for
Well, I
everybody.
think both of you suggested 900.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, 900 it is.
Thank you.
3 votes, right?
Thank you. We're now going to return to our village treasurer. Tom Warren is with us this evening for our next 3 agenda items, starting with retirement reporting for elected and appointed officials. Good evening, Tom, and thank you.
Good evening, Paul, and good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Trustees. And Stuart. And Jamie.
The gang's all here.
I'm here to talk about retirement system reporting for elected and part-time appointed officials. We only have one part-time appointed official that I'm aware of. That's a deputy corporation counsel, and she does not have regular work hours. As elected officials, you don't have regular work hours either. And for establishing a pension, it's based on, it's a formula based on wages, and it's also based on number of years of service. And every month, we submit to the retirement system a report that has from the payroll that the wages for all the village employees and officials as well, and also the number of days worked during that period of time, and that number of days worked accumulates to a number of years of service credit for the retirement system. And so, the retirement system established the process to have the elected and those appointed officials that aren't part of the regular time record keeping system to maintain a record of activities, which is then reviewed by the board and adopted by resolution to establish the number of equivalent days worked that we will apply on the payroll so that it becomes part of our monthly report to the retirement system, so that the retirement system can assign the number of years credit, days credit, each payroll along with the salaries, and that goes into the pension. So it's something that they ideally would like after every election, that the newly elected officials or the re-elected officials would maintain the record of activities for a period of 90 days within the first 150 days of taking office. And they do have a provision that allows for since your election is every 2 years, the officials can reuse the same record of activities for up to 8 years, as long as they certify that the time that was accounted for previously was still representative of the time worked. So that's what I'm here to ask is for all 5 board members, because we didn't do this last year, to either maintain and submit the record of activities for the 90 days or to submit the recertification if they would like to use the time from back in 2017 when the accounting was done. And then we'll come back to a work session, and the board's reviews the time, and they approve the resolution, which will be adopted at the next legislative meeting.
Yes, I remember it's a rather time-consuming process to do it well. The last time I did it, I spent a lot of time really looking at 3 months of my life and how I spent it and where I was, and that's everything that we do for the village. And I plan to recertify and say that I am still working in a consistent manner to how I was 2 years ago, I guess it was, when we did it. So are there members of the board now that don't have anything on record, or are the members of, I guess the board, you can speak for yourself if you think that you're, it's a similar amount of time that you commit to it? I don't know if.
I'm going to be modifying. Actually, Tom sent me the last one that I did, I think 2016 or before that, I think. Yeah, that's going to be changing. So it was interesting because part of the attachments, this is some samples forms that you send us. But then I went to the website, and it was just, so I'm going to be doing something different this time. So
certainly.
Thank you, Tom.
Good to go.
I believe Trustee Herrera, you were the only one that wasn't on the board in 2017 at the time that the resolution was adopted.
Yes, always submit. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
And Tom's going to go right into some 2018 year-end budget modifications.
Yes, so this is like the final step of the audit. The auditors were here a couple weeks ago, and we're still submitting some final loose end items. Like today, we received a report from the actuary for this OPEB liability, which is the village's liability for all health insurance for the retirees. It's and then to make it worse, there's new accounting standards that actually change the way that it's valued. So, you know, it's like an entity-wide thing. It's something that needs to be disclosed in the financial statements. It's not something that's funded for, you know, in the budget, other than, you know, providing for the current year of health insurance. But so saying we're getting ready to wrap things up. On the agenda packet that I submitted last week, the last couple of pages was a summary of where we were financially for 2018, and we kind of had an indication that things were going to look this positive when we were working on the 2019 budget and discussing, you know, how much fund balance there was, and, you know, part of the decision to utilize fund balance to pay for almost $1 million worth of vehicles and equipment in 2019 that would have otherwise been funded with a bond. And our argument was that this was a good use of fund balance. If fund balance seems to be higher than one would expect, and it has been higher than we would have expected, just because we've had many unfilled positions in the budget, a lot due to civil service matters and things like that. So on this analysis that was in the packet, the village's budget is about, it was actually $35.7 million, and in 2018, in addition to the $650,000 of regularly appropriated fund balance, we had also in the 2018 budget had $450,000 of fund balance that was used for one-time purposes, one-time expenses. So we also had the carryover of 2017 encumbrances, and then during the 2018 year, we had come to the board to ask if the board would appropriate $350,000 for the street paving project in 2018 instead of issuing debt. Again, the reason being that it was a good use of fund balance for capital purposes. And then, as I was talking about before, when we were working on the 2019 budget, right at the end of the December 2018, we came with a resolution actually in early January, retroactive through December 31st, to appropriate $912,000 for capital equipment and vehicles that were in the 2019 capital plan. So altogether, that's $2.5 million of use of fund balance in 2018. And the good news is that on the revenue side, we actually had $888,000 of revenues above and beyond the amount that was estimated in the budget. You know, because we don't have our department head reports anymore at the legislative sessions, I never get a chance to update you on the sales tax and mortgage tax. So I'll do that now if you don't mind.
Please.
Yes, please.
For 2018, we had budgeted $3.675 million of sales tax, and the sales tax distribution for the year was $4,012,240. So it was $337,000 more than what was budgeted. For the year, it was 4.94% more than the amount received for all of 2017. And we actually got our first, we've been notified of our first quarter 2019 sales tax payment, which is actually 4.16% higher than the first quarter 2018. So things are good on the sales tax side. I don't know what's going to happen with the counties.
Has the governor signed it yet? That was my question. Has the governor signed it yet? Because the legislature
I'm not
passed
sure
it.
if the governor signed it, and I haven't.
Said he would, but he says
Did he say he would? Okay.
And I haven't seen any
That was a sure thing.
analysis. There's so many, slices of pie when you look at the sales tax distribution, and
Oh.
I'm not sure, how much of the additional 1% would be allocated to.
I can tell you what
towns
the county executive's office told me when they wanted
Sure.
a quote for me to say what a great idea it was, and it was over $1 million a year that we would be seeing as an increase from what we currently get from sales tax.
That would be great instead of.
Would be great.
$4 million a year would be an extra million,
That
it'd be
and
$5
winning the
million a
lottery.
year.
It would be
Would be great.
Yes, and actually municipalities get just the way that it worked out, it's different than school districts, because the school district, though it has a larger catchment area, they get a smaller percentage, so they would be under $1 million, but we would be over $1 million, even though we're just the village population. It was actually a very good learning experience for me, because I learned a lot about how sales tax is distributed. It actually has absolutely nothing to do with how many businesses we have. We could have 0 businesses in Ossining, and we would get the same sales tax revenue. And even worse, it is determined by our 2010 census, and they do not update those numbers. And we know we were undercounted in 2010. We know our population has increased since then, and that is on the long list of reasons why we should work very, very, very hard to have an accurate count of the 2020 census. Just had to put that plug in there. It's something you're going to be seeing a lot more in the next year. Anyway, thank you,
Okay,
sir.
all right.
So we'll cross our fingers and hope for an extra $1 million in sales tax revenue.
Absolutely. Also, mortgage tax is another big revenue. We had a great 2017 year. We had received $360,000 in mortgage tax revenue, and we budgeted $150,000 because it had been low for so many years. In 2018, the amount received is almost $235,000, so it is down from the 2017 level. But it was still higher than the $180,000 that we had budgeted for 2018. So that was almost $55,000 more than what was estimated in the budget. And the other big revenue is court fines and fees that we receive. The way that the law is set, parking ticket revenues come back to the village, as do our local laws for building code enforcement. So for 2018, we had received $527,507 in parking ticket fines, which we had budgeted $425,000, and this $527,000 was 12% more than the amount received for 2017. And we actually had a very good year also for the code enforcement fines, $77,850, as compared to in 2017 was less than $49,000. So there was a substantial increase there. And remember, in my memo that I'd written, I'd also mentioned that the Recreation Department had received more than $100,000 in revenues above their estimates, which was very good. And also, I don't think it made its way to the memo, but I did look it up today. The Building Department actually had almost $105,000 above and beyond what was estimated in the budget for building permits and such. So it was overall, it was a very good year for revenues. As I said, totaling $888,000 more than what was in the budget. And on the appropriation side, it looks like the appropriations are going to be $3.4 million less than what was budgeted. Again, a lot of them are due to unfilled positions, and as a result of those unfilled positions, it also impacts our employee benefits. So employee benefits were down, but we also had a big savings on the health insurance in 2018 that helped contribute to that. So when you look at the excess revenues in the general fund and the savings on the appropriation side, and then deduct the $2.5 million of fund balance that was used, it's about $1.8 million extra that's going to be turned into fund balance at the end of the year. So that being said, and then I'd also included the water, sewer, and Section 8 funds, which were, certainly smaller numbers. They're smaller funds. But this memo, was like, every year I call it window dressing. A lot of it is window dressing to make the budget numbers look good on our financial statements. Like, for instance, the first item was when the 2018 budget was adopted, we thought that we'd have to issue a $100,000 bond for tax certiorari claims. And as it turned out, tax certiorari claims were a lot less than anticipated. We already had some money set aside, and we didn't have to issue a $100,000 bond. So, the first resolution is to remove that bond and the offsetting tax certiorari appropriation from the budget. And then item number 2 pertained to the refunding bonds that we had last year. As I've mentioned several times, there's a savings to the village of $497,000 over 13 years for us issuing new debt to retire the outstanding bonds from 2007 and 2010. It was actually about $6.125 million of new debt that we issued that was used to pay off the old debt because it was callable debt. The savings specifically for 2018 was $40,424. So, we're asking in this budget modification that savings be transferred to the debt service fund. And then that way we can use it in future years to help offset tax increases in the general fund and the water fund, rate increases in the water fund. And this resolution also includes budget amounts to take care of that $6 million entry that's in the debt service fund to account for the refunding bond transaction itself. I also had a budget modification pertaining to the LED streetlights. Every year we've been budgeting money to pay for the installment purchase payment on it, but nothing is payable until the project was complete. As Paul had mentioned at the legislative meeting, things were wrapping up and we're becoming agreeable to, make our first installment payment, as well as because we've been setting this money aside every year, and we had accumulated $293,000 in the debt service fund to make these payments that haven't been made for the past 3 years. That money's being used to pay for a lot of the additional extra lights that were installed that weren't part of the original inventory. And then I had number 4 was actually a bunch of transfers between budget lines. In almost every instance, the department was able to stay within their budget. If their budget was really tight, there was 1 or 2 instances of using small excess revenues, and there was one request to use contingency funds of, I thought it was about $13,000 to balance the budget. But, just like we had the excess revenues, the police department had unexpended appropriations of almost $212,000. The building department had $207,000, again, because of the unfilled positions. DPW had unexpended appropriations of $180,000. And I already had mentioned employee benefits. So those amounts are, going into fund balance. But this budget modification was just to, transfer monies to accounts that had insufficient appropriations, mostly because of unanticipated expenditures when the budget was adopted. And the same was done for the water fund, and also for the Section 8 housing fund. And then finally, the last budget modification was something that we had missed. when the village had received a $279,000 grant from New York City DEP for the water demand management plan. Initially, we had received $56,000, and I was thinking that like maybe, before the end of the year, we'd be receiving more of this overall grant, but we only received the $56,000, and we never came to the board to actually formally establish the capital project with the appropriation and the estimated revenues. So that was the last budget modification that was needed for the 2018 fiscal year. Is there any questions?
Thank you. I do have some comments, but I'll turn to my colleagues on the board first.
So, Tom, out of all of that, and as I listen through it, the one thing that I think we really need to work on is saving money from not being able to hire the right staff at the right time for the right positions is not a sustainable model. So I just want to be clear that some of that revenue and pensions, but all of that comes because we have empty slots across the board that really need to be filled. So before everybody parties, I just want to make the public understand that that is not our desired state. It's our desired state to have nice increased revenues and to have no surprises. Even a couple is okay. And obviously, for those of us that have lived through recessions, we have to make sure that we make it through the peaks and valleys economically. But these positions that need to be filled, I think, are making the picture look very nice, but that's not a picture I'd like to have. I'd rather have those positions filled and the service be provided. So I think I heard you right, that a lot of the savings are from that. Or the
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Others?
I do. Thank you, Tom. Very interesting, and you're right. Me personally, I kind of miss those monthly reports of the staff in there. So just want to throw that in there. Besides that, what was interesting to me is seeing some of the savings that we've been getting of the LEDs, lights, and everything else, and sort of maybe not now, but I would like to get an update in when. And I'm looking at you, Paul. What is going on with that? How come that is still not being closed off at this point? What is the...
Well, it is. I think, I actually don't remember alluding to it in a legislative session, but I might have touched on it a bit. We have reached an agreement of substantial completion. They still have to send us digital versions of some closeout documents, more specifically the database inventory for the town and the village that were converted with NIPA. But we've agreed in principle, and the checks have been processed to release them once we receive the digital format. So now we're going to start paying down that 7-year agreement.
So that's when, now we're going to start the 7-year.
Correct. With this first payment will be the first of 7 annual payments. The town did not choose the finance option. They paid up front a little, and then they paid the balance at the end. And Tom and I sat down and kind of worked on it a little crudely, and because of the time lapse, they kind of worked out the same way. It worked a little bit in our favor, taking it this way, only because of the lag of determining substantial completion and the savings that we realized. And if NIPA gets their way and increases the charges, the savings projected are actually going to increase, right? So a percentage of the increase is going to mean a bigger savings. So if you look at it that way, you have a more long-term benefit.
We're going to be seeing some of that stuff coming up in the next couple of months. The balance itself, the agreement part is going to start. You said the next payment. When's the next payment? Sort of, kind of.
Well, the next payment will be the first payment.
When is the first payment start?
Right after we receive the digital versions that we.
I understand. So what is the timeline on that? When did they say that they're going to be sending out the digital formats?
Last week. So if they send it this week or even early next week, you'll see the check. The check will be released. We already processed it to cut it, but I believe it's sitting in our safe until we won't release it.
The checks are upstairs. They were on last week's voucher detail report, and that was a brief mention that was made at the legislative meeting that the voucher run included. It was like less than $205,000 for the additional lights above and beyond the inventory, and then the annual payment of, it's less than 105,000. It's like $103,000 or something like that.
Just so you know where the extra lights came from, we didn't retrofit a couple extra 100 lights because we didn't know we had them. NYPA didn't have it in their database. But to some extent, that was offset by lights that were in our database that weren't in the village limits. So, you know, that offset some of those extras. So it's really just it's a bookkeeping issue that we straightened out, and it was good that we did. And we're going to see the long-term benefits now. And with some of the money that we're going to save on this capital project, we hope to do a lot of retrofitting on lights that are metered, because as and I'll just refresh everybody's memory, the lights that we retrofit to LED fixtures are not metered. They're billed to us by NYPA through estimated usage and wattage drawn from each bulb. So when we decrease the bulb requirements by converting them to LED, NYPA has a calculation that they use based on where you are in the country, how long your daylight hours are, and they estimate that over the 12-month cycle, and that's how they determine your bill, based on how long they determine the light to be on and energized, working. All our other lights are metered, the ones in the parks, the ones in our buildings. If you've been up to the operations center lately, you see that in-house, without a contractor, our maintenance staff, and I'll give him a little shout out, John Heitman, who I think you all know, is converting a lot of the exterior fixtures to LED. So although it's not going to be done at one time where it's going to be a real easy comparison to 1 year prior on the electric bill for the specific building, we will eventually see the reduction in our meters that we have per building. I've talked to Bill Garrison. We're going to continue to do it at the recreation center, and we're going to just keep rolling right along internally. Some of the outside lights in some of the parks, I was talking with Bill the other day, some of the basketball courts, he's doing retrofit there with some of the new courts that we're going to try to do. We're also going to do retrofitting some of the lighting on those courts to be LED, and those are metered, so you will see the impact there, and those will probably be done with the contractor, with this contractor at one time.
A good question, and I'm pretty sure maybe Rico would have been asking this question, but what I have noticed in some other municipalities, now I don't know about Westchester, but in other areas that I was reading this article over the weekend, what they've been doing is they've been putting or adding solar panels into the light poles itself. Is that something that we can look into, maybe doing that in the parks, maybe doing it in the community center, maybe doing it up in the operations center itself? Maybe not on the streets, I don't know, but maybe in our facilities itself, that we can add those into that?
I'm yet to see anything on the market that where a solar panel could provide the necessary lumens to on something that's going to light a roadway, and that's where we did all the retrofitting.
I'm not talking about roadways.
Some of the park lights where some ambient lighting exists here and there, I would surely look into it. I really haven't seen much on the market for that.
I haven't seen it in New York, at least not in Westchester, but I've seen some other stuff out there, so.
Okay.
I'll find the article, I'll send it to you.
And I just wanted to add, I guess for the public's benefit, even though we haven't, started to pay for this project until this year, we've been seeing the savings on our monthly Power Authority bill from the moment that they changed the streetlights. That data was entered into the Conda database, and we saw the savings immediately.
Yes, significant
Definitely.
savings. That is more than offset any additional expenses than what was originally predicted.
So
So
then the first
there's no hurry in us having to pay this bill. They can
No.
take their time.
it's
4
just
years will be
surprises.
just fine if they don't want to get us the paperwork.
problem.
We're fine with just getting the savings and not paying the bill if that's how they want to work it. The LED streetlights, I'm glad we had as much conversation as we did so that we could fully appreciate that. It really epitomizes investing in infrastructure in a way that is smart environmentally and economically. It's been a really beneficial program for us. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. And if I could circle back to your comments earlier during Mayor's announcements, the LED street lights makes up one of the posters that will be down at the Town Village Ossining tents, because both munis did it, and there's a lot of nice collective environmental efforts there, and we're going to have staff there for a good part of the day who are versed on the details of each poster. So as you guys are out and about, there'll be someone from Public Works that is at the tent to talk about those
Excellent.
work items.
Excellent. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and it's okay if you don't have the exact numbers, but it's something we talked about during the budget cycle. And now that we have the completion of 2018, one of the things we talked about, we've had 3 years of 0% tax rate increase, which is unusual, and sometimes people who are think highly of village government and our wonderful conservative practices, and the reason why we have such a healthy fund balance. But one of the things we started talking about this year in a different way, and I understand and learn more about the budget every year thanks to your patience and tutelage, but was the percentage of fund balance that we have compared to the total general fund. And I seem to recall that we have, and as we don't increase our tax rate, we're not really increasing our fund balance as a percentage of our total general operating fund, right?
The fund balance has been increasing, just like, it's increasing like $2 million in 2018. It increased, I don't know, $1.5 million or so, or $2 million in 2017. So despite the 0% tax increases, the fund balance has been increasing, because of the excess revenues and the unexpended appropriations.
Is that true both that's wonderful. I'm glad, because we were warned that wasn't happening, but is that true in both a dollar amount and as a percentage of the total operating budget? Because I believe we were hovering around like the 30%, our fund balance was roughly 30% of our total operating budget, which is extremely healthy, but that it had been ticking down a little bit, and at some point we want to make sure that it doesn't tick down. Is that my misunderstanding or misrepresented by some of the conversations that we had? A misrepresentation?
It has been a high percentage. I honestly can't recall whether or not, whether or not the percentage has been increasing or decreased a little bit. The budgets hasn't been increasing that much. So if the fund balance is increasing at a greater percentage increase than the budget's increasing, then that percentage is going to increase in terms of, percent of fund balance to the total budget.
Okay. That does make sense. It's just not what we were warned
And
about,
it-
so I'm glad that
and the
been better
number-
news than we had been
And the
anticipating.
number is in my audited financial statements that's sitting back here on the seat, but it will take a while to find that number in the report.
It's okay. We'll talk again. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
And we have one more item.
One more, but I can introduce it for Tom. It was,
I'd actually like to introduce it and then give it to you.
Oh, boy.
okay.
I resubmitted the memo, but I edited it a bit to ask the board to appropriate $15,000 of contingency funds from the 2019 budget for the engineering design work on the requested generator for the Hollow Hose Fire Company. So there's my
That's it?
introduction.
Okay.
My link here is
So-
not.
Just,
Link's not working?
Maybe it's just me. Go ahead, please, Paul. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to distract.
no worries. Okay, so this is somehow an oversight towards the end of the year. I think you know that a lot of the generator work is administrated out of the Public Works office. More specifically, Andy oversees a lot of those projects on the village's behalf. This is one that he had agreed to assist the fire department with the generator that they want to install down at Hollow Hose. So it would have come out of the fire department budget, and it was something they were looking to do in 2020. But when Andy and I were discussing, it was something that we wanted to design in 19. I think it somewhere got lost in the process of putting the engineering services into the 2019 budget. So we're asking for it now because we do want to facilitate that project for them next year, so it would be nice to design it and bid it towards the end of this year. It's a cost of, I think the proposal is $14,500 from what I just saw. It's right at that threshold of requiring board resolution, but we are establishing a capital project with it that's going to exceed that amount. So we're bringing it to you all for consideration.
Tom, I just have one quick question. How much have we pulled out of contingency fund this year?
You know what, if someone has, is my memo part of the agenda? I think the contingency, it was, thank you. The contingency right now has $225,000. I'd have to look at the budget to see what we started the year out with.
I think it was 300,000, right?
I want to say it was 300,000, yes. But I can't really think of what we had come to the board for this year.
Grab the budget from our office if we want to take a look. We've got the
Got the budget right
hard
behind
copy. Oh, okay.
While he's doing that, further background information, this is the same engineering firm that did the design and construction services for the generator at the Caputo Center and the second front building generator at the Rodriguez Ossining Operations Center.
The last time we discussed this, I believe, was 2 weeks ago at the work session.
Yep.
And we had some questions about the size and what we were asking of what sounds like a $250,000 generator. We're going to find out exactly what that is if we spend $14,500 to get it designed. The question is, are we designing and I don't think you were here for that, so I mean, you certainly weren't sitting in that seat, so you may be hearing these questions for the first time, but are we designing a generator that is simply a necessity to be able to open and close the doors so that the firefighters can get in and out? Are we doing it to have the bare minimum of heat and basic electricity? I mean, when the power goes out in my house, I have a pump-out generator. I can plug in my fridge, my water heater, and like a lamp. And that works, and that's from Home Depot. This is obviously much more significant and needs to be much more stable, but that's a big leap from a little Home Depot thing to $250,000.
Yeah.
So what we asked for was an understanding, and I understand if we spend $14,500, I'm sure I'll get an understanding, but what do we think we are asking these people to design? Are we asking them to design something that might be of greater magnitude than is necessary to provide us with the emergency service support that we are seeking to secure?
Well, I did hear part of that conversation. I didn't interject at the time because I just didn't think it was appropriate to do so. But what in my discussions with Andy, we're gonna treat this generator just as all the other generators that exist. That we are gonna have this generator in place to make Hollow Hose a fully functional emergency facility should there be a power outage. So it's doors, heat, light, water pumps, just like you would a emergency backup generator for your home. That's what this capital project entails. It's a permanently placed, hardwired, automatic transfer switch generator to power Hollow Hose as if there was no power outage.
And this is there was a logic for why we're starting with Hollow Hose. Now, I remember I mentioned a couple weeks ago, Ossining is one of the most prepared communities in the region if there is a huge power outage. We are extremely well prepared for emergency, to the point where we weren't even good candidates to get funding to be part of the grid protection because we were so well prepared. And it's all the generators that we have at our important facilities. And that's very, very reassuring for all of us here, and it's indicative of the kind of investment we do in long-term planning for a safe community. We have 9 fire companies spread out over 7 houses, and we own 5 houses. This is the first that we're looking to do, right? If our goal is eventually to have every fire company provided with the same level of security, that's a really big long-term investment. we don't have to commit to that right now, but if Holocaust gets this, then everybody else needs to have that same standard. Is there anything other than this or nothing?
Well, first thing is, fire headquarters has the same system.
They already
has
have
a
it.
backup system, right?
Okay.
State Street Fire Headquarters I'll refer to it as that, has a full building generator for both companies that are in there, and that's automatic transfer switch, and just like we're designing here. I think this is the first one because, as far as I know, even in some of the out there discussions about consolidating or new firehouses located in different places and relocating different companies, this is not one of them. Hollow is going to be where it's going to be,
Exactly.
and that's why I think
That's why it's
maybe
one of
the
the ones
chiefs
we're
have
doing
picked
now.
this one. I also I heard you talking about the microgrids last meeting in here, and I didn't interject there either, but the reason, I was involved in the microgrid application for the village way back when. The reason we didn't get it, and it was not just because we were over-prepared, but what the services they were offering for the microgrid on their behalf was the design and implementation services of the backup power source to create the power for the grid, which we had already. We were looking for money for the grid itself, and that was what NYPA was saying to the munis, no, you need to build the grid. We're going to design the backup power, and we had that. So we had a perfect little location with, police, fire headquarters, the drugstore, the supermarket. It was what they wanted, but they wanted us to put in all the support system and the subsurface tie-ins to tie all the buildings together as a separate entity, because you couldn't backfeed into their lines. You had to create a separate grid, right? Hence the microgrid term. And that's not something they were going to contribute to, and that was an extraordinary cost. So we just said, well, we're good kind of how we are. So, and that's kind of why that went away. With regard to this, if, the board wants to have a discussion on the necessity of what potentially could be every firehouse, as budgets come up year after year after year, we can have that discussion. But this project right now is defined as a full building backup power automatic transfer switch generator.
Got it. I'm just visualizing all of the firehouses, because that would be 2 of the 5 that we own. One of the ones that we own is possibly going to move, and one of the other ones that we own is possibly going to be dramatically renovated or changed anyway. So it's really just this cataract would be next, and then after that it's a lot of potential changes.
I think regardless of what I think regardless of what the design of the generator is going to be, you're asking for the design fee, which is less than $15,000.
Yeah.
Regardless of if we said there's going to be a full 100%, suitable for that particular firehouse, or if it's going to be just 50%, the design is the design fee.
If there was a determination that we want to get them a portable generator and backfeed it ourselves, there would be no design fee. We would do that in-house. This is going to be the design of a transfer switch, the power, the tie-ins to the panel that are hardwired, the permanent mounting of a permanently mounted generator, and the bid documents to go along with it that satisfy public bidding.
And I just want to remind folks, as I recall this conversation, and we could look it up in the budget again, but this item, I guess, had been brought up in years past, because there was a line in the capital projects, and the estimated cost, which we knew is ridiculously low, was less than, it was like 30 or 40,000 was what was marked in the budget that we were discussing. And I said, I think we all said, it's not 30 or 40,000. We know it's going to be more than that. But that's what was in the budget when we passed it, was some, unreasonably low dollar amount. So the fact that we're now coming to the table and we're saying all we're going to be able to pay for this year, or that makes sense to pay for this year, is the design. We're now talking about a design for something that is 5 times the cost in actuality of what it would cost. So I just want to clarify, this isn't like, oh, we already talked about this in the budget, not in a well-informed way. So now we are.
So if we were looking at portable generators, what would be the cost difference between the built and mounted tie into all the panels versus?
Well, it depends on the size of the portable generator that you would get to power up what was determined necessary to power up. If it was something that was to power up ambient lighting and the garage doors, you could probably do that with a portable generator for less than a couple $1,000.
I don't know if there's any productive conversation going on right now. I think it's more like we should have the chiefs, the fire chiefs present here and having more like a direct dialogue between them and us.
Well, we do. We talked to Chief DeCruz. I know Andy talks to him about this, and okay. Well, I'm just saying. Well, what I'm representing tonight is the fire department's druthers. It's not Andy and I. This is what they've asked us to help them build.
So do we feel we have enough information to proceed with this resolution, or would we like to bring them in?
With that said, and Trustee Asada, thank you for saying that. I do think, and back to the mayor's point, which I think is very important for the public to know, just because we discussed this numerous times, it's at a new context now and with more information, and I think we all agree that Hollow Hose isn't a property and a firehouse that's not going anywhere, and it's essential to our village. With that said, your question is a valid question. What are the alternatives? How does that work? How does it look like? Is it appropriate? Is it not? Really shows that a conversation, and that it would be a good idea for the public and for the board to receive an update from the chiefs about where we're at when it comes to their overall plan for this particular firehouse, and down the line having a conversation or as a timeline as to how that works with the board in furthering equipping our properties for emergency preparedness, regardless of how we choose to reform or expand or consolidate the houses in the years to come.
So this was brought to our attention today because we wanted to bring it to create a resolution for next week.
Yes.
It's possible that the fire chiefs would be at next week's meeting anyway, because we might be doing a proclamation related to them at either one of the May work sessions. Not for this particular. So I'm just, what? That's happening on the 15th. Yeah, I already. So if we could maybe have it that night, then maybe they could be there before we vote on it and offer some explanation. I mean, we can always reach out to them before that and get more information and have some more context. But I'm not sure. I think the sense of the board is that people are tending toward this is something that we think is valuable and is important to support our emergency services, and we want to do the design work. And if that's how most of the board is feeling, then we should go ahead and put the resolution forward. If people want to have more time, then I don't know if there's any sense of urgency that it has to go through next week instead of 3 weeks from now.
I mean, his question really, Trustee Bazemore's notion about alternatives really is a good point, for us to be educated about, why this is best. I mean, we already had a conversation at the last 2 weeks about, the importance of and what it would be used for. That it's not just for a garage door. They go on standby. People sleep there. It's a vital place. So, but it definitely warrants more discussion, even though it sounds like we are okay with moving forward, but just to make sure that we move forward in a way that really explores all options. I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, so I would err the caution of let's give this more time. We can invite the fire chief to the next meeting, but if we're talking about alternatives and having someone to explain why we need the $250,000 system versus what else might be out there, that may warrant more than just next week's meeting. But if the rest of the board feels that, hey, we want to jump into designing $14,000, pay the $14,000 and then jump into the $250,000, it only takes three. But I would
sorry.
Yeah, I would like to sit on this so we can get a little more information.
So I think if you guys would feel more comfortable for discussion for alternatives, because I didn't learn any more today than I learned 2 weeks ago when I asked for things to be answered. There's no more information, really. So I think it's a valid point. There's no reason, unless somebody says otherwise, that we can't have the chiefs in at a work session, actually, not at a, and ask some questions, alternative methods, some sort of a plan. Is this the first of 5? Is this only 2? Will it be 3? Because at 250
It's at least the second
and
of 5.
change, it will be over $1 million. And we've already learned from experience that when we look at one thing at a time, one makes a lot of sense, and all of a sudden it's slippery slope, that more is needed, and yet another. And I think the biggest question that was asked is, what does the emergency look like, that we need a Cadillac versus a Volkswagen or whatever, or a Prius or whatever? And I'm not sure. I think that's where you're getting to, right? Alternative, and we're not judging, we're not saying it's wrong, we're not saying 14,900 is a lot, but it just feels like there's a little bit of more information that's required. Is that what I'm hearing for the next work session,
There is,
possibly?
but there is, that's one thing that was clarified tonight, is we're talking, it's not just a Cadillac versus a Volkswagen, it's Cadillac versus a bicycle. You know, because getting a, you know, a $2,000 generator that just does the bare minimum to be able to open garage doors is like not even the same conversation. Like, we could just throw that into all of the houses right now and be done with it if that's what we think is acceptable. It's either a major project, because what we were thinking was, well, it's, you know, it would be a Cadillac versus a Volkswagen, but really it's not. It's a Cadillac, or it's almost nothing.
Let me just say this. I'm not completely certain, because I'd really have to draw on Andy for some more details, that the $250,000 estimate that we put in the budget for 2020 with the fire department doesn't include some ancillary systems that might be being done in conjunction with this. Maybe they were going to do some swapping out of some fixtures or what have you when they do the other electrical work. I really don't know those details. Because quite frankly, because it is going to be a little smaller than the generator that powers up State Street, it probably could be, you know, lower, maybe significantly lower than the cost of those systems. So I will check all that, and there will be correspondence from either myself or Andy in conjunction with Chief DeCruz, who does the buildings now, and that information will get out to you to consider.
You also, by reading the code from the engineers as well, one of them on part B in the design criteria, it says the proposal was based on the previous request by the Village of Ossining of the tour of the firehouses in February 2016. So there was some sort of conversation, and I remember this because John Codman at that time, he was involved in this, I believe. He was part of that. So can we get that report? I mean, I don't have the report that happened in 2016, so I think at least in my end, it would be helpful to understand what was the design criteria that they were talking about at that time, and it will help me to have a better dialogue, a better understanding with the chiefs as well. So
yeah, I believe that report was more focused on the
it was the LED
efficiencies. But let me see. Like I said, if there was components of that incorporated into the budget, but Andy will know, and I'll send something out to you guys from him and Chief DeCruz, so you have more information. And unless I hear different, I will not have it on the agenda next week, and ask that they come in the work session after that, and I'll work that out with Jamie, getting them both there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to take a quick break now that Tom is wrapped up before the Stewart show begins?
I would really appreciate it.
Okay. So, brief recess. Council, I'm sorry, did you want to comment any further?
No.
Otherwise, I'll throw it to Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahn.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the board and staff. First, we have is proposed local law 2 of 2019, which deals with revision to Chapter 250, which is our vehicle and traffic section of the local laws. This deals specifically with Article 7, which is enforcement of traffic tickets. We have discussed this before, and this was to include some provisions to allow for towing of vehicles when individuals are considered to be scofflaws. What we've done, and I provided to you all copies of the most recent revision of proposed local law 2 of 2019. It now provides that vehicles may be towed which would have 3 or more outstanding and unpaid parking violations issued against them for which the aggregate permissible fines total $500 or more. Currently, it's 4 tickets and $500. And also, the provision is here that there would have to be a mailing to the registered owner of a final notice that, the vehicles, with regard to the vehicles, and that they are essentially, within the, they have a risk of being towed or otherwise booted. With regard to the booting, if a car is towed or immobilized, which is the booting, the police department will be obligated to notify the owner by telephone within 24 hours, indicating where the vehicle may be recovered and the conditions under which it will be released. In the event that the owner or registrant cannot be notified within 24 hours, the police department shall request that the Office of Corporation Counsel, acting as village prosecutor, send a notice to the owner or registrant by certified mail return receipt requested, essentially telling them your car has been towed or immobilized, and if it's towed, where it is, and how do you go about getting your car back. With regard to retrieving your vehicle, and this is something we had a discussion about last time, I've had some extensive conversations with the chief about. We wanted to minimize as much as possible folks having to go to multiple locations in order to ultimately get their vehicle back. But as a side issue, one of the things the chief and I were discussing is you may get folks who have a significant amount of tickets. They could have, and we've had folks with thousands of dollars of parking tickets, and their cars get towed. And the way the ordinance is written here, and the way it is in every other jurisdiction, so we would not be any different, is that for the person to get their car back, they would have to go to the Justice Court and pay all the fines that they owe. Not just the fines that they owe on that vehicle, but if the individual owes any other fines through them, they have to pay those tickets as well. If the person wants to challenge any of the tickets, they still have to pay the maximum amount that might be owed, in a sense, as a bail. They don't essentially get to negotiate with the court clerk and say, I'll pay you 10%. But I should point out, that's the ordinance in every other jurisdiction that I have come across. No one basically allows an individual to bail their car back for less than what they owe. If they are arguing that they would like to have a court date to argue their tickets, then the court would simply hold the money, and if they are found guilty and the fine is less, they would get the balance back. The important thing here is that the court will get those funds. These would not go to the police. What the police would receive, and the way it's worded here, is that person would go to the court, they would pay, it would have to be during the hours that the court is open and accepting the funds, and paying in a tender that the court accepts, which is generally cash or credit card. I don't know if I have certified check here. The court, I should point out, if I do, it'll have to be changed, because this court does not accept certified checks. They would basically go to the court, they pay what they owe, and at that point, the court would give them a certificate which essentially says, you've paid us what you owe, you can now go to the police department. Police department will then get it and will say to them, okay, your car is at XYZ Towing, you owe us the following, whether there's an administrative fee or anything else you may owe, and whatever the towing fee is, which is a fee essentially that the village already would have in its fee schedule. That would be for the tow, that would be for if there's storage, depending how many days the car has been stored. The thing that the chief and I discussed, and there was something that was also discussed last week publicly, is, well, I think at our last work session, is to consider that the police department would in essence become the payor to the tow companies, rather than have the individual go to a third place, being the tow company, to ultimately get their car back. So this way it would at least allow And since our court and our police are in the same building, it's not as if the person has to go far. But critically, the person's going to have to be at the court when the court is open. We're not going to ask the court to be open extra hours, and frankly, they're not going to be open extra hours. So it's going to have to be during the hours that they are there. The court will not be in a position to accept if there's an administrative fee, or if they're accepting any fee for the towing. That's simply not funds that they're going to take in. They're only going to take in the fines that are actually due and owing, and hold those fines. And once they have paid all whatever they owe, the individual will then be able to go to the tow company. They'll have a certificate, stamped by the court and by the police saying everything's been paid. They can get their car back. Similarly, if it's been booted, they'll get the boot released if the car has been booted. There are also provisions here, which we had before, but I think these are a little stronger now, as to what would happen if someone attempts to take the car that's either been towed or immobilized. We've had it before in our code that if someone does damage to the immobilization device, they can be subjected to a fine, which would be up to potentially $250, in addition to any of the other fines here. But what this would effectively do is it would allow for the police to tow those vehicles which are considered scofflaws, which we would have here as, again, 3 tickets aggregating at a minimum $500 that are owed on those tickets. That would be based upon a list that would be generated by the Justice Court. That's the list that would be provided to the police. One question I have to work out that was actually posed to me by my deputy is what happens in the event that someone gets, someone's car, someone goes to court, but basically there could be a time situation where if they go to court the night that the parking tickets are on and their car has been towed while they're actually in court, well, sort of tough luck. I mean, they're going to have to come back the next day. There's not much we can do. I mean, what the chief is looking at is perhaps doing towing on a particular day, which would not be on a night that there's actually a parking ticket night, so that therefore the person comes out, they're not going to have that situation, and the very next day they could go in and they could start the process of getting their vehicle back. I do think it's important to have that there needs to be notice out there to the folks. It's basically a due process thing. Your car is in danger of basically being taken off the street. And also, once it's been taken off the street, telling them it has been taken off the street or it's been immobilized, and how you go about getting your car back. We have a provision in our current code, and I'm not seeking to change it, which is effectively that, if cars are not taken off the street as they're supposed to, or if they're not taken back after they have been towed, they are considered abandoned, and then pursuant to the New York Vehicle and Traffic Law, they can be dealt with accordingly that way, which in fact can involve with them being sold.
Is there a time frame on that?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
Is there a time frame on that?
With regard to
if you haven't picked up your car or abandonment?
48 hours. Any vehicle which has not been redeemed within 48 hours after the same has been immobilized, it would also say immobilized and towed, shall be deemed an abandoned vehicle and shall be disposed of. So we have 48 hours.
So
48 hours?
48 hours?
That's our current code.
So
That's your current code.
that's a problem.
Wait, help me understand this. So
You don't redeem your car in 48 hours after you've received notice that the car has been towed.
So what constitutes receiving notice?
We send it we send the notice that your car has been towed. Well, there's 2 ways. One is the actual telephone call, which would be made by the police.
Does that count?
What?
Does that count?
Yeah, I would say if some police get through to someone and says, by the way,
That's if they get through.
if they get through. If not, the police are obligated to tell the corporation counsel, who acting as village prosecutor, will send notice to the owner or register it by certified mail, return receipt requested.
Okay. I was envisioning somebody coming home from vacation and their car is gone and it's been deemed abandoned. It's
No,
truly
but
gone.
I'll clarify
but they're
that.
saying that's after a confirmed connection, after they've truly been
So,
notified.
so the police are unable to reach the person.
Right.
You send out the notice.
Right.
So say the notice takes what, 2 days?
Mhm.
And so once you get a receipt,
That's what the 48 hours. The 48 hours doesn't start ticking until,
There's one of two ways that other municipalities do it. One is obviously from the time of receipt. The other is 7 days after you mail it. Because sometimes people just don't sign the receipt. Or sometimes people refuse to take the letter. Or sometimes the mailman forgets to tell them to sign it. So you can do it one of two ways. You either do it when you get it back, then you look at the date, it's 48 hours, or you go 7 days from the day you mail it, whichever one basically works to be later, because if it's 7 days and at that point they haven't done it, then essentially your 48-hour clock goes and you can have your car taken. You can have your car declared abandoned.
and what does that mean for an abandoned car? Where does it go?
It can be auctioned.
By the village?
Yes. Or if the village wants, they can actually take title to it.
Right.
Well, actually, you're permitted to take up to 2% of the vehicles that are abandoned, but no more than 2 cars per year. So, as the mayor pointed out at one point, if someone had a Tesla, which is suddenly out there,
Yeah,
that would
Hey, you're taking-
Well, I mean, just because it's legal doesn't make it right, but thank you for that.
But the answer is that and in fact, in other municipalities, it's far more detailed. They actually go through the steps in the vehicle and traffic law, but the car effectively, title can be transferred or the car can be sold at a public auction.
Stuart, can you refresh my memory as to what prompted this? I know that this is going to formalize the police department's ability to enforce those who not just owe one ticket, but really have been, for whatever reason, not paying their infractions. Like, what prompted this?
Sure.
What are we not doing now that it will allow us to do?
We're not towing. We have no provision now to tow.
So we all these years we have not been towing?
No, legally we
Stop.
can't. We don't have currently, and that's
Thank you.
actually what the police have asked me to do. The code, as it is now written, allows to immobilize the vehicle but not tow it. So they've asked that we actually add in a provision that it can be towed as well.
And the reality is, all of us, anybody who owns a car has at some point gotten a parking ticket, and most of us pay it, and most people in Ossining pay it. And Tom's here, so if we wanted to delve into it, we could. But Comptroller Napoli did a big study of the fact that we have a lot of unpaid parking tickets, and if people know that it doesn't mean anything, you don't really have to pay it, and we don't really have any follow through, we don't have any method of enforcement, then what's the point of having parking regulations? So I understand that this is a necessary step for us to take, and frankly, it's unfair to the people of our community who pay their tickets, and to the taxpayers who think that our police are doing their job when they're writing these tickets, or our parking attendants are doing this job when they're writing the tickets. Right now, if there's no method for making them actually get paid, then we're actually wasting taxpayer dollars at every step of the process. So I recognize that it's an important step for us to take, and so I'm glad that we're making this effort. I'm a little concerned about the step when I get that they go to the court, and if you've racked up this much in tickets, then this isn't your first ticket. It's not one person who forgot and lost a ticket. They'll get a notification, and most of us would just pay it at that point. This is a chronic behavior that is that needs to be addressed, and so it's quite remarkable how many people are in that position, and we want to cut down on that. You go to the court, and you pay your all the money that you owe. Then you go next door and you go to the police, and the police. Then this is the part that I don't believe has been worked out administratively. If the police would then be able to provide a voucher or something of that nature, so that the person can then just go to our towing company wherever the car is in the community and just get it, and then they've paid the appropriate fee or storage for however much is in our fee schedule. Administratively, if this were enacted as soon as possible, would we be ready for somebody to actually be able to follow through with it?
The chief said that they are. They would. The issue would just be, and working it out, I think, through finance, because the plan again would be that the money would be the towing and the towing storage fees
would be received by police. And then at, each month, whatever towing contractor is used would ultimately bill the village. And then, there would be a voucher and they would get paid out. So that's the plan. And the chief has indicated to me that he has no problem with the police department essentially being the recipient of those, of getting those funds. Because again, it avoids the person having to go with money a third place, which is essentially the towing company. The point would be that after they get the certificate from the court, they would then get a certificate from the police, essentially stamping the same thing, saying everything is now paid. Your car can now be released. And the towing company gets that. They would send an invoice to OPD for I towed car X, this is the fee, and presumably at the end of the month, voucher would be produced and they would ultimately get paid. That's what we've talked about.
Has the administrative fee been established?
Currently, I did not change what it was within our code, which is $100, which is in here now, and that's what's been in here. I did not change it. I believe the chief indicated last time. Actually, let me change that, Trustee Bazemore. I apologize. The $100 fee, administrative fee, is in the current section 250-67. In the revision that I've proposed, I actually do not have any administrative fee. So I've actually taken it out. The chief actually was not concerned either way with the administrative fee. The fees that are in here that would have to be paid, again, are all the fines that are owed, fees to the towing contractor for towing, fees to the towing contractor for storage. If the vehicle has been booted, then it says payment to the village of a fee is provided in the fee schedule. And that, I think, would go back to the $100. And I would have to double check if that's actually, and Tom, do you know if that's actually in our fee schedule for a boot fee?
Towing.
There you go.
No, this is the
Okay.
towing and storage.
Okay, that's the towing and storage. Thank you. The towing and storage is $100 maximum for straight tows and $25 a day for storage. That's what's in our fee schedule. The $100, which is not within our fee schedule, but is within the code, is still here. But as I said, boot and tow is $100. It's listed in our fee schedule. The chief had really no strong view either way on that. So if the board was of the sense they didn't want to impose that, but did want to keep the fee if someone actually tampered with it, which I think we had is up to $250, we could just keep that in. It's neither here nor there. It wasn't a big deal to the chief either.
Just came to me. The court does a very good job at, and they even hired interpreters because the amount of Spanish speakers that they get on a weekly basis, it's not a few, it's a lot that need interpretation services. Are we now going to have to assure that the police department has that? I know that they have some Spanish speakers, maybe some other languages, and I know that we're talking about this in general, but I'm saying for this particular purpose, since we're going to be sending all these people now to the police department,
That's a bigger discussion, if that's something that we need to, if we feel we need to have a Spanish.
Right now, but
I don't think that's, then
we're sending
the
them
police
all to
department's
the
still
police
working.
department, so.
But it's also not like we're going to have 1,000 people on the first day. This is people who, there's a whole series of events that occurs before you get to this point. The fee structure could be written in both Spanish and English and handed. There are third-party interpreters on phones that any of us can use for anything. If you want a recipe for cooking, you can call a third-party interpreter that the police, they're not doing a legal issue, they're not negotiating with anybody. It's a price list, actually, and information. After people have not done a series of things. So unlike court where you're going in, you're confused, you don't know, what did I do? I didn't do it. This is like, you've already done a whole bunch of things, which is, that's how you got to where you are. Stuart, so I think it's like a little bit different. Most places, it's nice that the police station is open long hours, but the truth is when you get your car towed almost anywhere in the country, you know, there are hours, they're regular business hours, and it's unfortunate. Arguably, in some cities that are very strict, they're very strict because the word is out that this is like in Boston. You simply don't park illegally anywhere in Boston because you're pretty much assured that you're going to get nailed. And so people are really, really cognizant of that. I think we've gone to a point, as has been said here, that people aren't really doing what they're supposed to. And those are the people we're dealing with. I wanted clarity about a couple of things. Number one, the $500 in three. So it's 3 tickets that have to be at least $500, or it's 3 tickets and or $500?
Well, 3 tickets, I'll read it so it's just clear. Which have 3 or more outstanding and unpaid parking violations issued against them, for which the aggregate permissible fines total $500.
So it has to be at least $500. That's your key
That's
point.
and.
It could be 3 that equal,
It's 3 and
$100.
it's
You're
3
not
and
there
you're
yet.
not getting- Or it could be 501 ticket.
Yeah, no. So
It's-
you got
it's
to get a
both.
bunch of
It's
tickets
and,
and parking
yes.
to get to 500
Yep.
and up. I mean,
Yep.
it's not a minor deal. So I wasn't clear about that. My little piece of concern there. So I guess we deal with. I mean, I would assume all of these towing places are within Ossining. They're not in Pleasantville. They're not, right? I mean, it's
I believe
within
that
our.
all the ones the chief is currently using are within the village of
Okay,
Austin.
so the distance-wise, okay, so I mean, I wasn't clear about that and what we were saying about that. I think somebody heard, you said you don't think we should charge administrative fee. I disagreed with that, but I see you've taken it out. If the chief is okay, I'm not gonna.
Well,
it's fine. It's fine with me.
It's here if they want to put it in.
Yeah, it's fine.
Whatever this board wants to do.
So the only piece that's a little bit iffy for me is the one everybody jumped on, which is the understanding. First of all, places have been for decades charging fees. It's not called parking fees, but if you don't pick up your car in a certain amount of time, the storage fees. The only piece that worries me is for people who are either away or purposefully do not accept their mail. Either of those categories, and whether 48 hours seems or feels like it's the right time, but it feels like we may have settled that. So that's the only piece that I'm not getting, and if I read it on a price list, I'm not sure I would understand how that works. So that was a piece that was concerning to me.
Stuart, can you walk me through? I have 4 tickets, $500. There's a straight tow fee of $100. If
Correct.
my car is there for 2 days, that's now $650 that I have to pay.
Well, you got $100 for the fee, 25 days per storage.
$25 per day.
So it's 100 days. So
150, so 650 total.
150.
So basically, I go to the court, I pay my $500. They give me some type of receipt
Voucher.
or voucher.
Mhm.
Then I go to the police station and I give them $150.
That'd be correct.
Point blank.
Sorry?
That's it.
Right.
Now, if there was an additional, are you saying that there could be an additional administrative fee in addition to those fees that we've already talked about?
The only situation would be if your car was immobilized and you damaged the boot.
Okay.
You have to pay for it.
That could potentially be up to $250, but that actually would be a separate court proceeding because the fact is we can't determine what that would be at that point.
Okay.
But if you paid your parking tickets and then you paid the other fees, you'll get something which will say, now you can go to the tow company and pick up your car. Tow company may not be open at that hour, depending what the hour is, but you could then get your car. That would allow you to go get it.
And the only thing that I would ask, if it's possible, because nothing is, well, the police is open on the weekend, but the court actually isn't, is that it be not calendar days, if that's possible, but actually work days. Because if nothing is open on July 4th, even if I want to pay, how would I do that? And now I'm paying another $25 in my car being
Well, you're
somewhere.
paying a storage fee anyway. That's our storage fee. Then you're changing your fee schedule. Our fee schedule is per day. It does not say that
Okay,
we
so
don't
when,
apply it on a
so,
holiday.
but, so there is the legislative part, but we also, the BOT also establishes fees, correct?
Well, then you'd have to change your fee schedule.
Right, and we do that about once a year when we do budgets, so we might need to remember that we might want to look at this piece again as something to revisit when we do the fees, although we could change fees at any time technically. So I'm not as comfortable about that. I'm comfortable actually with everything else. And I think the fact you took the administrative fee is a nice touch. I mean, my desired outcome is all these people have basically been, snubbing their nose at the system. Not all of them, because I'm sure some of them have other reasons. Understand that in this village, if you do not pay what you're supposed to, and if you keep parking illegally, and you keep not doing what you're supposed to do, simply not accepting mail is not going to work for you. And those pieces, I think that this is fair without, I think you asked for it not to have administrative. I'm fine with it too, and if we find we should put administrative fee, we could do that in the fee structure when we do the budgets. Just like we could look at calendar days versus whatever. I don't want to be in the business of repossessing cars, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not
I really don't want to be in that business. I'm just going to tell you.
48 hours.
What we could do, the time can either be extended, it could be 72, it could be 96. I mean, that time is, again, that's what you have now. You could easily push that out if you had to. That's not a problem.
72 hours would certainly cover your weekend and the 3-day weekends, of which we have a number of.
The thing is, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why people don't pay tickets. And for somebody to come up with at minimum $650, but it could be significantly more. If you're talking about somebody who doesn't have a lot of money in the bank, then let's assume that people who are just not paying their tickets, it's not because they just don't care. It's because, but we may be, like, they may need a little more than 48 hours to come up with $650 to $2,000, whatever. And I certainly understand that there are, some folks who are just flagrantly ignoring it. And you know what? Then, you made your bed and lie in it. But there are some folks who may really be struggling and want to do the right thing. And I think 48 hours is not a lot of time.
So what would be?
Oh, did you say 7 days of 5 days?
Well, what I was saying is that I have to, if the police don't get through via phone, the Corporation Counsel's prosecutor would send a letter by certified mail. And that could be judged either from the time that it's actually received, that the card's been received, or 7 days. Because again, there are people who just, refuse to take certified mail letters. And then you just, and you go from that period of time. The only exception to there would be if it's 7 days and the letter actually comes back to you because for some reason it's not the correct address. And I should point out, what we have a provision in here is that the address that's used is the address that's on file with DMV. So, we're not tracking people down in that regard. We're just using the address that they have. But, bless you. But you certainly could, you could extend the time out in terms of redeeming it. If you give them notice, you can push that out. So it doesn't have to be 48 hours. You could push that out further. What it will do is it potentially will increase the storage fee for that person.
Yeah, that's right.
But on the other side, you're giving them time to get the money. Because the fact is, 500 is your minimum amount. You may be having people, as the mayor points out, who will have significantly higher fees that are owed. And so they're, and again, they're going to have to pay it in full. It's either going to have to be cash, and if it's a credit card, there's a 2.9% fee. So, and I'm pretty certain this court does not accept. They certainly don't accept personal checks. You may have to. They may accept a certified check, but you'd have to know what that amount is when you go in there.
So I had not much of what this whole conversation is about, which I'm okay with everything. Even with the time frame, it's 48 hours, 72 hours, or 5 days or 7 days from that. I think my question is, if this resolution goes through, so there's two things I would like to ask. One, obviously, we've been doing all these things to communicate with our community within itself. How do we do this? The building department did some sort of flyers where they said these are the steps to get a building permit. These are the steps of how do you do this. We're doing this whole campaign about trying to keep our downtown clean. I would like to see some sort of flyer coming out from I don't know, from either from the police department, from your office tour, where what is the steps if your car gets towed, or how do we do this? What is the process on this? The other thing that I have questions, and I'm going to look at you, Paul, is In New York City, if your car gets towed, because mine did years ago.
We've all
when
been
I
there.
was, there's a big sign that says if your car has been towed, you go to pier whatever, and this is what you go there. So what does that mean for us? Because right now, I don't recall seeing any signs that says if your car gets towed.
Right, well, and people can't just go to the tow company because they have to go to the courthouse.
Well, so what does that mean for us at that point? Are we putting more signage out there? Because if I come out, I went to a restaurant.
What will happen is they will report it stolen
Well,
to the police department, and the police department will say, "Oh no, not stolen. You're a scofflaw. This is what you need to do."
Okay,
Can I
but
just-
there is a difference. I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. So the sign is if you parked illegally. And I don't know if we've all been there, but I've certainly been there. That's the first time. It's not because you haven't paid a whole bunch of things. Although once you show up there, at least now they can look everything up. They didn't used to be able to, and now you're paying all this other stuff, and the fees are unbelievable. That's simply for breaking that rule once.
Don't park.
This is about, again, people who've had multiple tries to go, multiple attempts to reach him. Multiple times they could have gone and negotiated from $150 to $50, and it's not the same thing.
No,
the signs are don't park here, you're going to get towed.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all. What I'm saying is, are we putting any signage out there to inform people?
I don't think we need signs because we don't do that for other laws, but I think we have to do a whole.
No, it's okay. No. I just wanted to. So we actually had a discussion. I wrote a memo to the board about just towing policy, and we had a whole discussion about how we kind of want the public to know what happens if your car gets towed in general, whether you are, someone who owes 5 tickets or 1 ticket. We had a whole discussion about doing a whole, kind of like a Bill of Rights thing, so that we actually have a fee schedule. So if you're a towing company, you can't charge, an excess of this, and that we actually have, the names and addresses and how to publish that. Nothing came about that. I don't think it's ready yet, so I don't want to say that we haven't actually done it yet. Last I checked, it was still being worked out by the chief, and I don't know who else in the village. And maybe it's a good time to just follow up on how that's been going. But to your signage point, regardless as to whether it's for this particular item or not, to my knowledge and to my opinion, we haven't necessarily made it as easy for people to really get how we operate when it comes to towing or ticketing or parking in general in Ossining, but we're addressing that now. But when it comes to towing, whether you have a ticket or 5 or 10, whether you're a delinquent, whether it's your first time you screwed up, it would be nice to make it as easy as possible for them to rectify it and know who to contact. I agree with you.
So do we want to come up with this number now?
Which number are we talking about?
We had a whole conversation about the 48 hours and how we don't feel.
That one. I'm good with 72, frankly, but I just feel.
Don't you think 7 days is better?
I like 7 days.
I'm fine with giving people a week if they need to, from the time that they are notified, however you define that, there's a couple of different ways. Ideally, the police call and say, you're a scofflaw, your car's been towed. You have I would say at that point, the person answers the phone, you make the connection, you have 7 days to come pick it up. Be aware that there's a $25 storage fee for every day that it's there, so as soon as possible. And what you need to do is go to court and blah, 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 and tell them the process. I think 7 days is, yes, they're accruing a $25 fee every day, but that might be necessary.
Unless we look at Trustee Lemon's suggestion, even though she gave us both options to look at revisiting the fee schedule when we do it annually, or to just have a discussion about, possibly revisiting that fee schedule now. Because
we can update the fee schedule anytime, but what do you mean? Like
the storage, keep in mind, we're not charging storage.
It's the tow
company, tow company itself. So that means, I get it, but that's what I'm saying. So now we have to, it's just like the taxi fees. We said the rates, sure, that's what we do. So what are we trying to accomplish? So, Stuart, sorry, when you did all this research, do you remember looking at the fees in other municipalities and what do they have there?
I didn't look at their towing fees. Their administrative fees were generally $100, and their destruction or damage to the boot was up to $250. That was ours is consistent with other municipalities. The towing fees, I didn't look at in terms of what that was.
But then again, as a compromise, we are removing the administrative fee, so maybe that's a good.
Yeah, I mean,
way
$25
right?
a day for a parking
I'm just trying
spot.
to be real, too.
I just parked in Manhattan for $40 for 4 hours, so I mean.
I think
Voluntarily.
eliminating administrative fees so that I think that's like a nice, and also I think we should not change all the variables. Let's roll it out, see what happens, and adjustments can be made 6 months from now, and all and all that. And as far back to not physical signage, which I don't think we should do. You do it for one, you're going to have to start putting it for all. But I do think that website. The way we're doing this little big Ossining thing, it seems to be effective, putting things in the media, putting it out there on social media, traditional media, letting folks know and saying it a few times, putting a poster maybe up at the police, because it's new, effective X date, even though some of this is not new, it's been around forever. All of those things.
It's really not. We haven't been enforcing scofflaws at all. I mean, it is actually potentially a news story.
Well, so we're saying effective X. This is.
So, but process-wise, all you're talking about now is if we're happy with any tweaks to this proposal, calling for a public hearing next week, then the public hearing will be 2 weeks after.
Yeah. I'm in
good
support
with
of that. And you got some of our changes.
Are we up to 7 days after notification?
Okay.
Okay, good. All right.
I'm the only one that was not for that.
I was
Votes,
72.
that's all that matters.
So.
Oh, Manny and I are
It's
72.
no skin off the nose of the village because we don't want the cars. We want the people to have the
Just-
time they need
just
to
keep
come
in
and
mind,
get
if
the
I have
cars.
It's
a
a
car
time
that is
delay.
worth $1,100 and my fees and tolls and
I'm
everything
leaving
else
it
is
with
going
the
to be like
village.
$1,500. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to.
Leave
And then we'll auction it off and we'll make our money back.
This is how my brother got his first car at 17. Somebody just left the car, but it's okay. Let's figure that out later.
$500
Okay.
for it.
But it's not what we want. We
No,
don't want
God,
to have to deal with
no.
abandoned vehicles. So what we can do to get people to have time to be able to pick it up, that's what we should do. Okay.
Right.
Where are we?
We are now on
Zoning. ZBA.
next, proposed local law 3,
Oh, is it? Okay.
which deals with providing alternate members to our land use boards. This has come up because in the very recent past, we have had quorum issues with 2 of our land use boards. And the thought would be that if we were able to have alternate members there, they could participate and they could vote and they could actually be in a position to make the determination. For one particular board, over the past 4 months, I think, 2 of the meetings had to be canceled because of no quorum. And there were active cases on. So it creates a problem because it basically puts people back who are expecting to get approvals. What we have here is a provision that, and I should point out, the state law allows for alternate members, but they can, on the state law, they can only vote if there's a conflict of interest. However, under municipal home rule, the village can adopt the law which says that they can basically, the alternate can vote if the member is simply not there for whatever reason, absence, disqualification, recusal, whatever, and that the alternate member can be there for purposes of counting for the quorum and for determination. What I have here is that the alternate member would serve a term similar to that as the other members on that particular board. So 5 years for planning, zoning, and HPC, 2 years for EAC. And that they would be under the same training requirements, all the other requirements set by both local and state law with regard to their memberships. What I have here, and I'm just looking at a few other things here, I put a provision in here that the alternate members would, the service would be that they would rotate among the alternate members. So, for example, if you have 2 alternate members, and the provision here is that they can appoint up to 2 for each of these boards, how do you know which one is supposed to serve at a particular time? State law provides that the chairperson will decide which alternate votes But some of the municipalities here have basically you do it on a rotating basis and you decide who it is. Also, I think it's fine that if you need two of your alternates to participate, they should both be able to participate. I mention that because there are a number of municipalities here which have that only one alternate at a time can participate at any time, which is silly because if you don't have the quorum without the other alternate, you're sort of defeating the purpose.
And they don't count towards the number to make up a quorum, correct? 'Cause
They
they're
will
all-
count.
They will count.
count if you need them to, but they will not.
No, I mean, if you, they don't add two members to a committee, therefore needing a
No,
higher
no.
member to become a quorum.
No,
They're
for example,
just alternates.
Quorum is three, the quorum is
Zoning would still be three,
Right.
but you could use them to reach the
Yeah,
three.
that's fine.
Now, one thing I do have here, and I had a call with Trustee Bazemore about this, I have a provision that the alternates would be appointed by the mayor with the approval of the Board of Trustees. And to follow up, the reason for that is that the default under both our charter and village law is that if there's no provision for how someone is to be appointed, it's a mayoral appointment with approval by the board. This board can do it whichever way they want. I mean, they're free to do that. As you know, with the EAC is Board of Trustees, mayoral, and the other three are manager appointments. So however you want to work that, I can certainly put that, into what the version is. But this basically would allow for, no more than two alternates on each of those boards. And those alternates would have to attend those meetings. They'd be under the same attendance requirements because sort of like an alternate jury, you're not sure when you're going to be called.
Oh, so they have to go to all the meetings?
That changes a lot of my concerns.
Okay.
They're a full participant. They're a participant up to the time that they have to vote.
The question of if it's a mayoral appointment and a board approval, that's what it is. Mayoral appointment with board approval for particular land use boards is how it is for state village law.
That is correct. Correct. If the state village law provides it's a mayoral appointment with board approval. That's correct.
For these land use boards.
Right.
Our having this be a manager approval is unique to our charter. And we're not talking about alternates, but
it's unique to our code, not our charter. Because our charter basically still has it as mayoral, but we changed we adopted a change in our village law for planning, zoning, HPC, to allow for a manager appointment for those three boards.
Is that legit?
Yes, can be done.
Okay.
The answer is yes. So that's what proposed local law 3 does, and
Which means you have to put it out there and interview people and appoint people and all that.
We can't appoint them until we pass this law, though, right?
So, do we want to have the planning, zoning, and HBC be consistent with?
EAC also, I think.
No,
Yes.
I think the EAC is a board of trustee, mayor, and board of trustees
Oh,
appointment. But the three land use are planning, zoning, HBC. Do we want that to be consistent with the code with respects to alternates? Or do we want this to be a board of trustee mayoral appointment? That's my question. My preference is that it's consistent.
You lost me. Consistent with what?
With what we have right now, which is the manager being appointed, this additional
The
alternate.
alternates, the way they do the.
Correct.
I actually, based on recent history, would prefer that the board have more of a role.
Well, let me just kind of interact on this. So I remember when we have done all this, I think we all been part of some of this interview process. But when I was interviewed for the HBC many years ago, the mayor was present, village manager was present, and I think a liaison from the HBC was present. And as far as my understanding was, we all have been participant in any of these interviews. We should still be doing that kind of stuff. We should be part of that because it's essential for us to know. It's like when I go to the HBC or when I go to the planning board, it's like I even ask Stuart, like, who's that gentleman over there? Because I've never seen him before. And I think I should know. I probably know him by name because I go through through the list of who's on the board, but me personally, I don't know who they are. And I think it's essential for us to know who they are, regardless of, we get the resumes and that's pretty much it. But I think it's essential for us to be part of the process itself. We may not be appointing them, but I think we should be part of the process.
I don't know why we wouldn't appoint them. There was specific requests from a chairperson of a committee to have a particular characteristic in appointees, and it was not taken into consideration at all, and appointments were made, and we were told about it after the fact. So I think the board should be formally part of this process.
And these are advisory boards to the Board of Trustees, aren't they?
They're not advisory boards, no. Zoning is quasi-judicial.
Oh, it's a,
So
no, sorry.
No. The only one that is advisory is oh, I'm sorry, that's right.
Oh, you're the one that's off. Okay.
The only boards that are advisory, HPC is advisory with regard to landmarking,
Right.
and EAC is
Is
advisory.
advisory.
But the other two are not. Well, let me stop that again. Planning does provide advice to this board with regard to certain waterfront permit requests,
Mhm.
special permit requests.
But they also interpret and implement our
That's right, so
code.
they have a separate actual function, and ZBA is unto itself a separate, extrajudicial body.
That's not what local law number 3 does right now. That's not what we're talking about right now. So
Just talking about for the alternates.
Correct. So what do we decide? Because let me ask you this, Stuart.
Oh, for the alternates? I'm in
Yeah.
support of the alternates.
No, I'm talking
No,
about
it's about
the
whether you
appointment
want to-
process. Appointing
Oh.
the alternates. So
We were
let's
discussing
say we go with what we have right now, which is a village manager appointee. Let's say in another month or so, with the next work session, or 2 months from now, the board decides to bring this topic back and they said, we want to change this. We want the village board to be the person who appoints this. What happens then?
You'd have to change, well, if you were changing your appointment structure with regard to both to members as well as alternate members, you need to change your the provisions in Chapter 270, because that's where you have zoning, planning, and HPC.
Then we have to modify local law number 3, let's say.
You would then have to also modify local law 3 with regard to alternates. That would be correct.
So I think it's more like a discussion of the board. What do we want to do? Because either or, we're going to be modifying this law either now or we're going to do it twice.
So do we want to be consistent with the code with respect
We're
to
consistent with the rest of New York State.
Well, that's subjective, but
Really?
I mean,
No, not objective. You meant to say subjective.
I said subjective.
Oh, okay.
If
I'm
I
not hearing it.
kind of
Say
mumbled,
subjective.
excuse me, subjective.
Say subjective.
We lack a lot of consistency already. So I think that especially now since we have an interim manager and we're going to have a future manager, whether we keep them as appointed or not, whether we keep it as manager appointments or not, the board has to make it very clear that they do, that the manager does have to communicate his or her intentions to the board. I mean, they direct to us, they report to us, and yes, we've had a challenge with how we interact with managers clearly in the past, but now going forward, we have a fresh start with our interim and also with our future person, and we could be past that. Hopefully we won't have those trust issues where we could actually talk about who the appointments are and why, and whether it's appointed by the board, myself as a trustee, or the manager. That whether it's an appointment from the board or the manager, that we're on the same page. And to your point, Trustee Casada, me and the board taking a better look at a resume and asking more questions about people that we don't know, and which I should do a better job at overall. So thank you for that. That's a reminder that I should keep. Thank you.
So what is your recommendation?
Stay consistent. Just keep it as a manager's appointment.
Oh, I see. Okay. Just stay
Because
as
they
is.
stay consistent with the code, but not consistent with the charter.
Yes.
And what is it that you wanted from us when we started this conversation? It was just about alternates, right?
Right, but the question has
And
come
then
down to.
came
How do we
up-
appoint the alternates?
process. And if the sense of the board is to essentially, for the three boards that are managerial appointments, have the manager do the alternates, and for the one other board, for it to be mayoral with board approval, that can easily be changed. Because, that's the only thing. It seems like
I wanna move
everything
on.
else is pretty much.
Okay,
okay.
yeah, I've sort of lost track of this world, so I want to keep me the way it is. And we need to find the alternate, so that's it.
So you want it to be manager appointments?
I want it to stay
You want it to
the
be
way it is
manager
current.
appointments? Okay, so do it as manager appointments, and let's move on.
May I schedule this for a public hearing, a resolution to call for a public hearing next week?
Yes,
Sounds
please.
good. All right. I believe we're done. Motion to adjourn to executive session for matters of personnel related to specific persons.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Please join us next week, May 1st. We will be back at the Birdsall Fagan Police Court facility for our next legislative session. This meeting is adjourned to executive session.